Hello, I'm Claire Snowden-Darling.
I'm Laura Knowles.
And we are the founders of Balanced Wellness and the College of Functional Kinesiology. And we would like to talk to you today about why we have developed the work that we have developed, predominantly not only in our clinics under Balanced Wellness, but then also developed an entire training pathway for the College of Functional Kinesiology. And the reason that we did that is because it became increasingly clear to us through our personal health journeys and also being at the coal-facing clinic and supporting people on their health journeys that the traditional methods used in alternative health trainings of different varieties weren't helping everyone to get well. And the reason for that was that fundamental hormonal interplays were being missed. So we went away, did a load of research, came back and put together a practitioner training course. And
Just like that.
just like that.
Went away.
It was quite a while, I'm going to be honest.
Not that simple. But I like how you described it.
Baked this cake, there it was done. Everyone had tea. No. But part of the reason for that was because there was so much lacking, and at that particular point it was particularly my health journey, not only in the medical model, but also in alternative health. Now, let's give you an idea of what we mean by that. So, when you trained in your first nutrition course...
Yeah, it was a focus on the traditional Chinese medicine, the 5-element theory, which is something that I love,
Yeah.
and it is a part of kinesiology. How we were taught is that the focus is the liver. And yes, the liver is an amazing organ. It does about 300 jobs in the body, everything from detoxing to digestion to hormone interplay to blood sugar stabilization. There's loads of things that the liver does, and yes, very important.
Well, it literally comes into all of our modules.
Absolutely. Yeah. But just focusing on the liver, you're missing a trick.
Yeah. And then when we trained in kinesiology, we were pretty much taught that everything comes down to an imbalance in the endocrine system, so our adrenals or thyroid, or the ileocecal valve in the gut. So a gut, what we would now call a gut microbiome issue, because of course that training was also before the gut microbiome became a watchword. Both of those things are actually true. However, there's a reason why people are having adrenal issues, gut microbiome issues, etc., etc. The first thing that we did was to go off and study irritable bowel syndrome because we both had it. And what we discovered was that the irritable bowel syndrome isn't actually a bowel disorder at all. It just shows in the bowel. And it's because the bowel has become a dumping ground for an overwhelm of hormones. It's become a victim. And then if we took that thinking a little bit further, well, if a massive percentage of our immune system, the figures vary between 70 and 85% of our immune system is in our gut microbiome, with this huge impact in the world on autoimmune disease and cancers and just immune issues in general, if they haven't got to those big places, well, the connection with the gut microbiome, what's going on there? And what we discovered in our work was that both the immune system and the gut microbiome are victims of a bigger picture. At which the liver is part of. However, we can't just work on the liver, we can't just work on the immune system, we can't just work on the gut microbiome, we can't just work on the adrenals. And this led to a really interesting piece of work, which really interestingly actually came about as an explanation of emotions, but you know, as part of what we do in kinesiology is this real deep looking at how our emotions and our physical health are connected. And ultimately what we came up with was something called the triangle of hormonal health. And the triangle of hormonal health isn't talked about anywhere else, so it has become the song that we sing and scream from every single rooftop. And on there's 3 legs to the triangle of hormonal health, and we need all of those, the 3 legs, to all be, you know, standing upright in their own merit for that little stool to be stable. And as soon as 1 or 2 of the legs, or in some cases 3 of the legs, are all a bit wonky, the stool's going to fall over, and ultimately the victims of that are going to be gut disorders, immune issues, as well as symptoms within that triangle. So let's look at the hormones that are in that triangle. So the big one that, of course, we were taught when we were originally training in kinesiology are stress hormones. So the things that come from our endocrine. So particularly the hormones that our adrenal glands are so busy creating. So adrenaline, cortisol, and as humans living in this modern age, we are bombarded with them at all times. We're in massive overwhelm from stress hormones. So when we've got too much of that going on, and there are very many reasons why we could have that: emotional stress, physical stress, financial pressure, work, family pressure, food intolerance. People don't talk about food intolerance. Chemicals, all of the things can cause an overwhelm of stress hormones in the body. And it would be fair to say that most of the people that come into our clinic, and most people, you could drag someone off the street and we're looking at stress hormone issues because we're all living it. The side over here of the triangle of hormonal health is actually we call them the female hormones. We're not mitigating the testosterone in men because that's a big part of it too, but we're particularly interested in this interplay of female hormones with the stress hormones, because so many symptoms today, so many conditions today are actually female hormone imbalances. So even things like obesity, diabetes, there's a massive overwhelm of estrogen. All of the female hormone issues, polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, fertility issues, perimenopause problems, awful menopauses, period problems, puberty. So many things are tied up in there. And yes, men's hormone issues. But then the third part of our triangle is the bit that has been massively overlooked. And I mean massively overlooked.
I'd even stress to say missing. We cannot find this connection. We can find it in the research, but we cannot find anyone else talking about this connection. We have investigated some of, the best paleo gurus out there, the best nutritionists. We cannot find it. And every single time I get a meal plan from this, person or that person, sort of big person in social media, when I sign up to see what they're doing, I go, they're missing it. The third part is blood sugar hormones. And basically, if our blood sugar hormones aren't balanced, we will end up with stress hormone imbalance. We will end up with female or male hormone imbalances, which will then lead to immune issues, gut dysbiosis. So one of the big blood sugar hormones is insulin. And when insulin is high, we talk about the blood sugar roller coaster. So when we're eating a lot of sugar or carbohydrates, there's a lot of insulin that is produced by the body. When there are high levels of insulin in the body, you can see a direct correlation between the amount of estrogen and testosterone, to be fair.
Yeah.
Both of them rise in relationship to insulin.
Yeah, massive. But then there are other blood sugar hormones that aren't talked about. So things like leptin and ghrelin, which control our hunger and our satisfaction, which is missing for a lot of people. And there's also CCK, which is cholecystokinin, massively overlooked. There's a huge link with cholecystokinin with anxiety. And there's a huge amount of anti-anxiety medications being peddled by the medical model. Interesting correlation. But most people's blood sugars, again, are out of balance because people aren't eating correctly.
And so if you've got cholecystokinin that's out, that's creating a lot of anxiety, then you've got a lot of adrenaline and cortisol, so that's your stress hormones. If you've got a lot of adrenaline and cortisol, you're going to have low progesterone, which is going to balance out the estrogen, so estrogen is going to get higher. And this is why our little triangle is so important to look at, because of this interplay between the three sides.
And when estrogen goes high, we spike histamine, which is the immune system, and then all of those excess and IBS. It all
estrogen is linked to IBS.
Yeah, because it all gets dumped in the bowel, irritable bowel syndrome. So it's this connection, and I get that we're talking about hormones in it. And I remember when I used to talk about hormones, I kind of go, oh, that all feels like really detailed, medical stuff. But what we're so passionate about is breaking this down to make it really understandable and give you tools that are really applicable to yourself, to your family, and to clients. And that's what we're doing in our clinics, in our practitioner training course, and in any of our online programs, is we are breaking down this triangle of hormonal health and giving you tools to be able to start making real change. Because unless we get those foundations in place, the change will not last. It will not be actually effective change.
I think the other thing that we are good at and we're passionate about is making something that is quite complicated simple. And so that you're able to understand it and apply it, and the tools and techniques that we share, they're very simple to apply, they're easy to recommend, they're easy to adopt, and change is so quick. I know with balancing blood sugars, when you get underneath that, I know from personal experience, when my blood sugars are imbalanced, I can feel a rise in anxiety, I get jittery, I struggle to make decisions, and as soon as I'm able to apply some of the tools and my blood sugars balance, symptoms go away.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's what we're doing in these, in all of the things that we offer. And what's so great about doing this work is when we understand our own bodies, when we understand where our conditions are coming from, we then have the power to make change. So at any times when I've kind of gone, my symptoms are creeping up, and I go, oh, that's because that's because I had that weekend away and I didn't really think about my blood sugars. But the other exciting thing, and it's the bit I love so much about this, it's the aha moment that our students, our clients get, is that so many of the things that are peddled to us day in, day out, on the television, on social media, in magazines, in newspapers, is wrong. So what we are doing is breaking through the myths with the actual nutritional science, which is cutting edge nutritional science, and giving you the information that's easy to apply. Like, we were all doing it wrong with juicing.
Who knew?
Who knew? And this is the stuff that we're passionate about correcting, is actually, let's make the change that is really going to bring us good health.
Gorgeous.